land originally protected by the Confederated Villages of Lejeune. We acknowledge the genocide that took place on these lands and must take strides to repay the moral debt that is owed to this indigenous people, specifically the Ohlone tribe. We thank them for their contributions, which have transformed our community and will continue to bring forth growth and unity. The City of Albany commits to sustaining ongoing relationships with the tribe and together build a better future for all that now make this their home.
Thank you. Now, approval of minutes.
Okay, did everybody get a chance to review the minutes from the last meeting? If you like, I can pull them up if anybody needs to look at them, or we'll take a motion to approve the minutes and a second to approve the minutes.
I approve the minutes.
I second.
Okay, with a motion and a second, Member Carlton? For the vote.
Oh, yes.
To approve the minutes?
Aye.
Yes. Member One?
Aye.
Member Johnson?
Aye.
Vice Chair Green?
Oops, aye.
And the minutes have been approved.
So now it's time for public comment. Is there anybody there?
Checking in here to see if there are no people online and no people in the physical audience right now.
Okay, we're going through record time. Next is presentations, and it looks like there are none. Okay, so now we're on to discussion of foyer gallery.
Yeah, so since the call for artist submissions for 2027 goes out the 1st of April, I wanted to bring, over these last couple months, I've been looking at all the different calls for artists. We have a call for submissions for muralists, for the sculpture purchase program, Fallen to Haiku in the fall later this year, and then right now for the foyer gallery. And I wanted to align all of these different processes so they have the same format, the same order, the same language. I was noticing a variety of different versions of the same thing across multiple platforms, and I just wanted to standardize that. So I looked at all of them together, and the first one that we have coming up that's going out to the public is this, and I wanted to use this one as an opportunity to look at the structure for this, and then any specific language. Obviously, there are going to be specifics for each program that would be distinct. Obviously, sculptures are for sculptures, murals are for murals, and different programs have different language, but I wanted to make sure that we were asking all of the same questions in the same way, even just for basic stuff, name, address, website, social media, those are different things. And as we've gone through a few of these, especially for there's a certain aspect of marketing and sharing that comes after the fact that I wanted to ask that stuff on the front end, like, artist bios, artist statement, description of the piece, things that when we go to promote something that's happening, it would be better to have that information in the beginning directly from the artist than try and, compile something after the fact or search for something after the fact. So this is, I've done a lot of work already looking at other cities, looking at other agencies here in the Bay Area, and then comparing the different processes. And I compiled the two documents that I wanted to share tonight with the committee. The call for exhibits and the gallery artist agreement are two things that one needs to go out to the call for artists, and we receive it back, and then once an artist is selected, being able to send the agreement to the artist to get them to sign. And Brad and I have discussed this. The committee looked at this maybe a year and a half ago, 2 years ago for this, but I wanted to comprehensively come back and look at all of these together. The other main thing that will change this year is we will begin using an online submission form, which will allow us to receive the information in a much more efficient way. I would say about 50% of the artist submissions that were coming in Some people just struggle with compiling PDFs, and in order to, especially when sending in additional images, I wanted to be really clear about format, size, so that it's all very clear in the beginning what the expectations were and really outline it, and then introduce some specifics that always come up after the fact. For example, and the foyer gallery, I always thought it was somewhat deficient to not let the artist know from the beginning like what the dimensions of the wall space were. You know, some very simple things. So, so I put draft versions of each of these, and I figured I would imagine that you may have all had a chance to look at it a little bit. We can go through this. I didn't really bring it up to do live edits to make some changes, but I'll make some notes if anything stands out. And of particular note, I looked at the guidelines for public art and tried to go through a lot of other cities and compile language that was fair and equal and clear, and to describe the types of locations where artwork would be submitted. I know there's been a couple conversations about political statements, and I went and got the specific information for what city ordinances have to do with putting political language on signage or on artwork, and it really has to do with campaigns. So I narrowed it down to campaigns, but also cleared up any of the ambiguities that were in there, or anything that would look like it could be personal opinion that would show bias, and really leaning into the fact that the city needs to be somewhat neutral canvas, you know, for art. Or at least neutral from the perspective of presenting art to multiple people of multiple backgrounds or modalities. So, if you want, I can go ahead and pull this up and we can look through it, or if you have any questions, you know, just let me. Okay. All right, let me share my screen here. About that. I didn't mean to launch Adobe here. I think this is, so I wanted to put everything in the same order so that when somebody either does an online submission or fills out a PDF, it's all following the same order. So this is all just basic information. One of the other things too that I was looking back at some of the previous calls, and I wanted to make sure like all the information was up front, and especially with timelines. You know, one of the things I noticed with the mural program, and this was kind of an anomaly what happened this last year with the state legislation, is, but we should be able to say in the beginning, the information will be received within this time. There will be a time when it's being kind of adjudicated to a certain degree with a selection panel, and then what the time frame is for implementation. I think that would be good to put on the front end, so that it's very clear that it could potentially be a long process, but it's a somewhat accurate listing of the time frames for any of these. So I put in, so basically it would start with a program overview, and like I said, this would be the same for the other as well. Kind of describe what this is about. I don't think I really changed any language in this too much than what was there before, although I would say that looking at putting some language, accessible opportunities for artistic expression, encourage cultural engagement, shared civic facilities. So, you know, noting for the foyer gallery that that there are some constraints to the type of art based on the activities that happen in the space. Highly visible public space used by families, youth programs, and community members of all ages. So, just kind of setting the standard there.
Sorry, just going back right there with brackets. Is that us filling those in, or is that?
No, that's just placeholder information for so this would be used for an online form. It also be, none of the formatting has been done. So this is not to be filled out by us. This would be for, so if I did the release date for this one, the date would be April 1st, 2027. And then I would put in the submission deadline, which I think we, correct, yeah, you're right about that.
But one thing I thought actually was intentional was the call for exhibits 2027. That was intentional.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that's great.
yeah,
Yeah,
right,
agree.
exactly, yeah.
Program contact, that's going to be city person?
Probably that would be city staff, and then this would be just the basic my contact information
Okay.
for the city.
Great.
So for the foyer gallery, looking at the location, space, and description, so for the other types of programs, we would detail where it is, right? So if it was for murals or for Fall into Haiku, we'd kind of give a description of the locations of, how it's implemented. I wanted to add some more detail, especially because this came up in working with Susan for Journeys to Albany, giving a better description of what the backer board was like. I think that's useful for people to have more detail up front of exactly what they would be adhering their artwork to. And I don't think that we've had that in the call before.
No.
And then the dimensions for the panels on each one of the walls. And then, it's a two-dimensional gallery. There have been times when people have asked for, can we put sculptures or hang things? And I just wanted to be very clear that there is, I looked at a little bit, in terms of weight capacity. That was another thing that I decided to just leave that off for right now. I don't think we're ever really getting things that are too heavy, or that the mounting brackets would not be able to support. I don't know if there's any weight limits, but that was another thing that I saw in some other cities, that they had listings like nothing over 40 pounds, or then I was trying to think of what sort of like really heavy artwork that would be. I don't know if it's that important really to allow.
I don't know, I think we could address that.
Yeah. But I was also thinking a lot of cities had like a maximum depth of the artwork. Would you want something to stick out 7 inches from the wall?
No.
Yeah, right. So I think that this is also fairly reasonable. I did add a couple of things just across the board because we use this in the murals for individual artists, artist teams, and artist collectives. And I think there was some language that it could only be a solo show in previous iterations. And I know the committee has talked a little bit about being a bit more expansive in how you combine shows. I figure that could be something that is left up to the discretion of the gallery manager, so long as it's a cohesive show. If for whatever reason, I think over this last year, we've got some good submissions and had some good shows, and I think there's a certain caliber that I think is, especially as we document these shows and we put more imagery on the website that shows what the gallery shows are like, then I think we're going to have better submissions when people have a better reference to see what has been there before. That's kind of my goal with the website. Do you have any other suggestions for legibility?
I don't know why I was questioning 18 years age. Kind of get it, but restrictive. Anybody have any thoughts regarding?
And I think there's parental.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Parent has to actually submit.
Oh, and
Yeah.
yeah, then that's all cool with me. And I like the eligibility changes, individual artists, teams, collectives, that broadens the whole. So I like all that.
I think the ultimate goal is to be inclusionary rather than exclusionary.
Yeah.
I don't know that we get many artist teams to submit, I mean, maybe, the four-year gallery, but I wanted to try and keep things as similar between each one of these processes and forms and programs, so that it's all easy to look, as you kind of go through it, it's very similar, and we don't have any outstanding language where one doesn't have something that the other does, especially if it, can be cohesive. Submission requirements, this will be the same for all going forward. There will be an opportunity to submit online through an online form, an email submission where somebody through following the directions could send a PDF compilation of a print, they could print out the PDF version of the form, fill it all out, and then compile it and email it to us. And if somebody really wants to mail something, that we have some directions for how to do that, and then some detail for printed images, and that they would not be returned. So I wanted to kind of specify, be able to let somebody know exactly how to get us the information.
I just want to note that this is number 5, but there is no number 4, so.
Well, thank you. I think I went in and I added some stuff, and I didn't make that change. Thank you. I always appreciate your eye for detail, Deirdre. Thank you.
The details.
In the submission, then I standardized all of this so it all follows the same. This is a very small detail for name, address, phone, email, but we had it in different iterations and multiple forms. I do want to request, and this may not be mandatory, but I would like to have an artist website and social media links for any artist who's submitting. Part of that is I would like to be able to promote them in our marketing. And I found that some artists, if they didn't have it or they didn't provide it, it's very easy to write some copy about an artist in a show and add in like a call for action to check them out on their website or go sign up for theirs. I think if they're going to be in their spaces, when we do marketing and share their work, it would be good to be able to include their other forms of contact.
I agree, but it's not a requirement, right?
No. No, it won't be a required part of the form, but people be, I'd like to get that at the very beginning. Also, I think it makes it, it adds some context for evaluation for the art committee when you're looking, you may be looking at 10 different pieces of work for a show, but I think the committee has found when it looked at the artist's website and what the rest of their work was, it kind of gave you a little bit more understanding about their, kind of like the full picture of their creative process.
I agree.
Try to keep this pretty short. This is the same from before, a letter of interest and an artist statement. The title of the exhibit, I don't know if we've been really strict about that before, but I think that it would be helpful if they did some thought on this before and they present a show based on their artwork, as opposed to just sending us. Some of the stuff has been kind of like a random compilation of their work, and it'd be nice if there was a bit more detail. And so I added an exhibition proposal. That's something that's new that I saw in other cities, because there have also been times where I think there was one thing that was approved and looked at, and then the artist kind of showed up with a different, different types of work for installation.
And I remember titles have changed.
Yeah.
Well,
And that would be something that the title, this show was approved as opposed to this artist was approved. Like, that's kind of what the committee should be looking at, the artist and the show, as opposed to just the artist and whatever stuff they bring.
Do we have some leeway because there's so much time between,
Yes.
you know?
I think that's for the gallery manager's discretion.
Okay.
And with it doesn't necessarily need to come back to the arts committee, but, you know, so long as there's good communication. Maybe that's actually something that should be highlighted in here, that there is some flexibility. Maybe we want to craft some language. I don't know if we want to call that out and say we're flexible, but I would leave it, you know, to the gallery manager.
Yeah, I don't want to open up any loopholes or anything.
Resume or CV, I think that's always been useful for this, and I think that that would be applicable to the other types of calls that we have. It's pretty standard. I changed some of the language. Before we had 8 images, and this seemed kind of arbitrary, so I changed it to up to 10 images. I thought that would be but I don't know. I mean, maybe in your experience doing the gallery for this many, is that enough to evaluate on? Should it be less? Do we want to look at less images?
No, not really. I mean, really to fill the gallery, you need to have at least 8 images, 8 paintings, or whatever, for each panel. So up to 10 images is probably good. That should give us a good representation.
Yeah. And I think we've always asked for a title, year, medium, dimensions, and price, right?
Yeah. If it turns out they're all little tiny pieces, then
Yeah, right.
it's like, well, you gotta have more than
Yeah, right, exactly. So selection process, this is where I wanted to be able to detail. So for the murals, we would probably list out exactly what would happen once, you know, once the city receives it, and on what basis things are being judged. So like whatever the metrics are, or whatever the evaluation tools are being used. So I added in, may review the applicant's website and publicly available professional and social media accounts. I think we should acknowledge that we would look at that.
Yeah.
So and this is all pretty standard. I've seen this in a lot. So merit, originality, cohesiveness for the proposed exhibition, right? Appropriateness for a civic, family-oriented facility that may automatically weed out, you know, somebody's collection of nudes, may not be, that might be the right venue for that particular type of art.
Right.
Technical suitability, that, it needs to hang on the wall as opposed to be, hanging on, have lights or power or, those sorts of things.
Yeah, I don't know if there needs to be more information about that, but that is a good thing because the paintings or the presentations, the pieces have to be a certain quality to hold the hardware and go on the walls.
I remember some people have said, like, do I have to put frames on my, in my artwork, right? Like, stuff like that. So that would be a technical suitability for display.
Yeah, and that could be a little bit at discretion because a lot of paintings are canvases. They're on a board, so they can be hung easily. They are not necessarily framed.
Right. And
I think this is fine.
Wait, I have a question for the last one. Like the work samples. Are they submitting like samples that are representative of the exhibition, or like do we get to see like what will actually be there?
so my thought is that when curating the show, and if that's not clear, maybe we should clarify some of that language, that the images, and this would probably be a good question for the committee. Does the committee want to see examples of the artist's work to understand that they're a professional artist, or this is the nature, this is what they've done in the past? Or should it be examples of the work that would be in the show itself?
Well, right now, the language says representative of the proposed.
Okay,
So
Is that clear enough?
Covers both, you know, like, they might not have it yet, but they could, like, send in a similar something.
maybe it's a piece of work, but maybe one of the pieces sells
Yeah.
before the show starts or something
Yeah.
like that. That's come up before.
Yeah, that's a good question, but I think I'm okay with it.
The content and display standards, this is the one that I was trying to keep consistent across the ways, where we describe the location of the installed artwork so that it's very clear what to be expected, like who is the clientele, who would be frequenting the space, and then incorporating language that is fair and defensible, but without turning too much to opinion, which I think could be a dangerous place, you know, to be for the city to say, you know, the city believes this or that, as opposed to being somewhat general, but, well, specific and general. So I think this is all pretty standard, the hate speech, including content that demeans or diminishes individuals, extreme or graphic depictions of violence inappropriate for a family-oriented civic setting, pornography, explicit sexual conduct or graphic sexual content, content that promotes or glorifies illicit drug use, gang activity, or criminal content, obscene material, commercial advertising, corporate logos, or product promotion, and then campaign advocacy for or against a candidate, political party, or ballot measure. To be very specific about that, because that's actual, that's ordinance for city code for campaign signs and for any sort of like political representation.
So now, in the agreement, it says also tributes or commemoration reference.
Okay, so then we should add that one.
Yeah.
Looks like we missed one.
Yeah.
On that.
Sorry, what was that?
Thank you. I remember that one.
In the agreement, there's one more that's not on the list. And it's tributes or commemorative references to identifiable individuals living.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, I thought that was on there.
thank you. All right, I made a note of that to add that one back in.
I also wanted to ask, I don't know if someone mentioned this already, but does this also apply to the title of the artwork?
You know, that's a good point, because we don't clarify that the title needs to, or should also, because that could be a surprise too. It could be a totally graphic title, you know, and it's a painting of flowers, right? You know, that's, you know, all exhibited artwork and titles. You know, it could be something like that.
And I'm kind of wondering about the pornography bit, if we add anything erotic. Now you're saying explicit or graphic.
Right.
Want to go a little further and just say anything that erotic?
You know, it is. I was trying to get away from subjective, and I tried to introduce that with detailing the location. So appropriate for viewing by a general audience, including minors, like, and so it would leave the judgment to the artist, to a certain, as opposed to the city being an arbiter of subjective. So any input that you would have for that, because I think that will put the city in a precarious position to defend a definition of what somebody else considers erotic. And
Good point.
and if we keep it very, you know, strict for what is not permitted and then detail the space, then I think it also, if the Arts Committee is to make a selection and views the work and says this is not appropriate for this location, it's easier to say that, like, the community center is a specific place, and this work, though valid artwork, is not appropriate for this location, as opposed to, we don't allow erotic work.
I get it.
Any other questions or thoughts on that?
Yeah.
Sales, this is, I think, the same detail that's been in there before. We might need to add a little bit more on installation and responsibility, as I was wondering whether or not we should say for your gallery, whether or not there are people to recommend locally to help with installation. I don't know if that's worth putting in here in terms of a call for artists, or that's something probably better for an artist agreement. But I know it's something that comes up, and people often have questions about the hardware.
I do send out references of people that can be hired.
Because in looking at this, you know, we detail the space with, you know, the dimensions of the locations for the installation, but we don't detail exactly the products that are required to be used. I think maybe we need to add in the details for the hardware, like the city uses XYZ brand of installation hardware, and maybe we need to say something specific here. I don't know.
Well, I think you do mention it. Maybe it's not in this document, but you do mention that you need to use the city supplied hardware.
It's in the artist agreement, I believe, but it's not here. And should there be any information about that so that the artist isn't surprised? You know,
It probably would be helpful, yes. The city requires this specific hardware.
so we'll add that in there. And then here it's kind of what I was talking about, a timeline, you know, application deadline, notification of selection, installation period, and then the duration. So I think we're kind of standardizing this as much as possible to be an annual show. That maybe we need to, in the call for artists, say that there's 4 slots for 2027, one from January to March, one from April, and just put it very specifically. Or do you want to have more flexibility?
I want more flexibility.
Okay.
That's kind of what we ran into this year. It overflowed because of Susan's extended into 2026.
Got it. Okay.
I wasn't expecting. And I'm questioning the installation period. We won't really know that if this is the artist application.
Yeah.
They won't know.
Yeah, so maybe the timeline needs to be more general, or the installation period could be the week before the show, or something like that. Would you want to say something?
Installation period, it's really a day prior to the show.
Yeah, okay.
It is.
It's one day, right?
One day.
So we probably would, I'm trying to give people a realistic understanding of what to expect.
Oh, I see. Installation period is day prior to opening.
Yeah, okay. Do you have any other, because I'll finalize this, and this will be sent out in the first part of April. It won't come back to the committee for like a final review. So if you have any suggestions after the fact, email me. But I think it's pretty good so far. I think we'll be good to go, even if we miss a couple of things on the first round. My hope is to be able to do this for each one prior to going through it, and we finalize some of these details so that the format is very similar and the language doesn't deviate.
You did a great job, Chair.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah,
We-
I agree.
So reservation of rights. Right, so this is something that I also saw that we didn't have in this. Some stock language that we can reject any or all applications, you know. I don't think if 10 really subpar applications get, you know, submitted, I don't think that, you know, we could do another call for artists or something like that.
Yeah, I agree.
And that they would become part of public record because likely they would be reviewed by the Arts Committee in a public meeting. That's the one thing that's different than the selection panel, which doesn't have to be a public meeting. These all get reviewed in public. I don't know if anybody here has any strong feelings or if that made them feel uncomfortable, but all of the artists would be invited to come to the public meeting, or they can tune in if they were paying attention and wanted to see the Arts Committee evaluate their work. So I don't know if that's been the practice. I'm unaware that there is. I don't think that there is a way that the committee as a whole would be able to meet privately to review.
I mean, we've always discussed it
Yeah.
on public record.
Yeah, and then the selection panel is something different for the other
Yeah, because that's
programs.
private.
Yeah, right. Any other questions about reservation of rights? Then the submission instructions is very similar to what we're looking at up here in submission requirements. So the requirements and the submission instructions, but they're also kind of there's requirements and then there's the instructions. I'm wondering whether or not I should merge those at one point, but it kind of needs to come at the end too.
Yeah, I first actually wrote down that it seemed redundant, but now that we're going through it so slowly and people get confused, so it might be fine to have it both.
And it'll be somewhat different in an online form, right?
Right.
The online form is going to take you step by step through a process.
Yeah.
The PDF would be orientated slightly different. They would print out, and if they were just to type up their own answers to questions and send them in via hard copy and mail, it would be slightly different too. And we'd kind of present it in different ways, but I would try to make it not redundant. This really, I wanted to look at the language more than anything. But I was thinking that too. But the requirements do need, because you need to, that could probably be like a checklist in the beginning as a description, and then the final instructions for how to do it. And that concludes that part. Any general thoughts or questions? I think there's two things that we need to add in is the other living persons, tributes, and then the hardware details. I might want to put in a sentence about that he requires specific hardware. Anything else?
No, I noticed there was very little in this. I don't know if it needs to be in this document, but there was very little mention of artist reception.
Oh, that's so for the, maybe that needs to come in the description, the program overview. Maybe we need to have as we describe what the program is, it starts off with a gallery opening reception.
Opening.
That the artist is
reception.
responsible for prior to kick off the show. So,
Just to let them know that they're responsible for the,
Yeah.
basically.
Later it says something about if there is an opening, so then you would have to remove that if there.
yeah, right. Where was the if there?
It's under, oops,
There still is a possibility of
under 9.
an artist not wanting an opening, right? They don't have to do it.
Well, then it shouldn't be in here.
Yeah.
Either, I think it needs to stay the way it is and not mention it and say participation in an opening reception if scheduled,
Right.
or it goes up top and says,
Yeah, it has to be one or the other.
One or
It's
the other.
either it is something that happens and that they're required to do. Well, I guess it could be, they could choose not to do it. No reason to force them to do it. They're responsible for making it special.
Yeah, I think that might be something you could just leave as is in this doc and
Then we call it out of the agreement.
details more on the agreement.
And that would be something that the gallery manager would discuss directly with the artist.
Yeah.
When you visit their studio. Okay, ready to move on to the agreement? Okay, this one is, this is more kind of like the, excuse me, the Arts Committee has had a few different versions of this. The first one that I found when I took over was a little, it wasn't really very complete or thorough. And I wanted to come up with something that was detailed, more specifics. It was more like just a couple of statements and initial by this on a piece of paper. This will be an online form too that they would read and fill out and electronically sign. And or fill in the PDF, but I would much rather receive these as public, as submissions that, Brad, you could just email to somebody, have them fill it out, and then I receive it, as opposed to passing the stuff back and forth through a signed PDF somewhere. So in here, I try and keep it more or less in the same organizational structure, where we can detail the space, the terms in here. And I'm wondering if there might be a way that I can preload some of this stuff. I'll have to look in the form, because if we send this to the artist, I'm just thinking now, they may not know the exact exhibition start date and the end date to fill it out. So I might need to be done on a case-by-case basis. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
most contracts are, at least in my experience. You have the template and then you modify the template.
Yeah, so I think if we're gonna do an online form submission, I might have to make a template for this and then we send it to them. An online form for the foyer gallery, it won't be the same for a $30,000 murals contract. We would do an actual physical contract that was signed by parties. But the foyer gallery is a little bit different. It was a little bit more casual. But maybe it does need to be a different type of procedure than an online form. I'd have to think about that a little bit. But we have some time to figure that out, because we won't need to present an artist agreement for this batch until the fall.
I mean, does the city use DocuSign?
No, they don't use DocuSign, but they've been looking to use DocuSign.
Would be super easy.
Yeah. That might be we use Adobe Suite for a variety of things, and we can do some signing with Adobe. But I was thinking that this might make sense, but we might have to draft an agreement that has specifics in it, and we do it on our side, and then we send it, as opposed to giving you a blank form to have them to fill out and send back. I think I want to make it easier for them to complete a.
Right.
So then also, because I actually left it in here, I didn't have it in there. And these are the things that I'm trying to, work through. So when looking at the exhibition standards, this one does have tributes or commemorative references.
Right.
However, I didn't put it into the call for artists. So this is how these things happen.
That's why Deirdre's here.
Yeah. Here we have a little bit more description for the installation and removal. I think this covers just about everything. I don't think, because I took the language that we had in there work through all of this. I think this is pretty, if you need me to,
Do you want anything more specific about the hardware?
that's what I was wondering. If we could include that. I don't know if that makes sense, like the brand or the type of material or a description of how to do it.
Yeah, it's a known brand type of hanging. It's very secure.
That doesn't change. Could you email me like a sentence or something about the name? And
Yeah.
I think I can go look it up, but it might be, if you have it close in your head, like what you would tell somebody, and then I'll rework it, I'll put it in there.
Yeah, it's got a couple names, so I'll have to figure out which is the most common.
Any other things on the installation and removal?
No.
Preparation and installation coordination. I think this is all pretty much the same as it was in there before. Artwork labels and sales information, maybe we would want to add in, mention titles, should the artwork and title of the artwork. I think that's a really good point, because, I mean, there's, the titles could be very provocative,
Good.
potentially. Or, you know, what if they used profanity, like, and that's just the name of the pieces, right? Like, you might want, but if that's the name of the piece, like, they're not going to change the names of their pieces to do a show, would they? Would artists? I don't know.
You still don't want that on a label that's
Right, exactly.
sitting in the foyer, right?
Yeah, that's what, you know, surprise, you know, when you lean in to look at it.
We might want to mention.
This is all the same. So promotion artist materials, I wanted to ask for this stuff up front. There's a few things I added in here. I think a headshot would be nice to have if people have that. This doesn't have to be a requirement, but it would make our work easier to do a news item and put a page on the website that had a nice looking, well-designed profile of their work that would stay on the city's website. And it give us more, I think, a more professional way to present the gallery to the public in an online space that would also serve as an archive, say after a couple of years, you know, and we have better, we have a standard kind of catalog of past artists that people could go through and see the other shows. I think it would show a comprehensive body of work for the Foyer Gallery that doesn't exist right now. There's no real record of past shows that you can go back to the website and like, oh, what was here before and what was here before? And I think that it would be good to start doing that. It'd be very easy to do if we start asking for some of this content up front. We also, when we ask for a promotional image, I think at the time of the artist agreement, would like them to specify it and potentially send us that image. Because that's been some of the things I've noticed in the past, is they don't always either send the correct sized image that works well in a 4x6 postcard. And there have been some issues like, well, I don't want to crop it because it's a square, and then there become some design elements like how do you fit the thing in. So it probably want to maybe even specify a little bit more. But I did give some more text details for exactly what we want them to do and what we may do in different places where we share that image.
I also think this would be a good place to mention.
Yes, yes. So because the reception is essentially a promotion.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I'll add in some language about that. And then, because I think this will also be, we'll sign it, or we'll do some check boxes, like, or some initials. So the details, would we want to present the detail, so the city provides a table and the space and the time frame. What are the other things that need to be mentioned about that?
Main thing is the city provides up to 2 banquet tables, some chairs. Artist is responsible for all decorations, refreshments. And time is from 4 to 6. Those are the main things.
Is there any reason why it should always be 4 to 6? From your perspective, is that good, or do artists, would they prefer it to be at a different time? Not on a Sunday, on a Saturday? Like, I don't know how much flexibility they wish they could have.
Susan has been the only person to ask for something different because hers something
It was
really
something
different.
different, yeah.
Nobody else has really
So
asked for anything.
we can always just say it's a Sunday, 4 to 6 p.m.
Yeah, that seems to work pretty well.
Okay.
And I'm perfectly open to if that for whatever reason the artist is out of town or something, of adjusting that. But then we have to work with obviously the community center.
Yeah, it seems like a good time. It doesn't necessarily, I think you always schedule it for the weekend that it's actually installed. So it gets installed on Friday, do a reception on the Sunday.
Right.
But you could do the reception the following weekend. That wouldn't be too, I think we've done that.
Yeah, that would be fine.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll add in the details about that here. So maintaining, so I added in a maintenance of artwork. This was something that was pretty standard in other organizations. Non-exclusive license to photograph and reproduce images of the artwork for, there may be a reason why we'd want to take a picture of the installation for the recreation guide or something like that.
Yeah.
Risk of loss, this is pretty standard language for risk. And then removal by city. So they need to come back and get it, and they're supposed to.
Right.
Indemnification, reservation of rights, notices, this is all pretty standard. I didn't go too much into like full contract language, especially for the Foyer Gallery. It doesn't really need that in the same way. I don't know if I'll necessarily bring back city contracts for the committee to look at. That'll pretty much stay at the admin level between the city manager and whoever the larger kind of programs, like the different PAPP programs that exist. Those contracts probably wouldn't come back, but the calls definitely will. But since this is a little bit kind of a lighter format, agreement, I thought it would be appropriate. And I think the committee has a lot more to do with the Foyer Gallery, some of the other programs. So that's, any other questions related to this before I open it up for public comment? Okay.
I'm good.
All right. Stop the share, and then doesn't look, so I'm going to open it for public comment, but there's nobody in the audience and nobody in the online, so bring it back for committee for any further discussion, or I put it on here as a discussion item. I don't think there's anything necessarily the committee needs to vote on about this, but if there's any other thoughts or
Sorry. I do have one other thought. There's a mention, I can't remember where it was, sorry, that final artwork is approved by the city, which I assumed it was always that way.
yeah,
But there was no mention of one of the committee members having to meet with the artist to review.
Oh, you know what? That's a good point here. Let me share this again. I think that should be something that is in the call. So maybe that's under,
Selection process? Maybe?
but it's not a part of the selection.
It's true.
So,
After the selection.
so do you think it should be in part of, because the artist agreement happens,
When they've been selected.
so I think this is probably some degree of, in the timeline, that we kind of generally present what happens. So it's application deadline, notification, selection happens roughly here. Meet with gallery manager, discuss show,
Yeah.
and then exhibition. Something that's very general.
Yeah.
So maybe it's application deadline, notification of selection, meeting with gallery manager, installation, exhibition. Some sort of like, these are the steps.
Yeah, yeah, I think that would be good. Just so it's noted in there that somebody from the committee has to like
Yeah.
physically review exactly what it is.
Because once the selection happens, the committee votes on the artists for the Foyer Gallery for 2027. Gallery manager will reach out and set up appointments, right?
Yeah.
So does that need to be detailed in the call for artists at all? No. All right.
I don't think so.
Yeah, that'll just be, they could watch the meeting, right? I mean, and then whoever gets selected will be notified. The one thing that I do want to do is come up with a standardized bit of language. I may bring this back for the thanks but no thanks, that we should send quickly, because sometimes I think that gets lost in the process, and it should come from the city, unless the gallery manager wants to be the person to send that. I think it's better to come from the city with some, thank you for your submissions. Like, I want to make sure that we follow up. And same like for haiku, let's make sure that we have the right type of language to let people know that, thank you for submitting, but maybe it wasn't selected, something like that, that makes it, that it probably should come from the city as opposed, so there'll need to be some, like, eventually some coordination for fall into haiku, like, here are the people who are not, selected, what's the easiest way to reach out so it doesn't have to come from a personal email, or that you have to be the ones, and then people stop you on the street, why didn't you take my poem?
I think that would be good to come from the city. I know Emily and I put together basically those two notes. It's like, thanks, but no thanks, and
then
thanks, we
thanks.
really want to show you.
Yeah, right, okay.
We have both of those
Oh, if
statements.
you can send that back to me,
Yeah.
I'll look at it, and then I'll put it, so it's some coordination that I'll probably need to do with you as the gallery manager, or set it up into my schedule to make sure that I do that. Because I don't want it to wait too long, because I feel like I didn't do it, and then it didn't get done, and I don't know if, I don't think it's necessarily the committee member's responsibility for doing that.
That would be great. Unfortunately, I think a lot of people have never been notified that they
Yeah, makes sense.
haven't been chosen.
Yeah.
Okay, so move on.
Yeah, I don't think there's any motions or any votes. I think that takes us to subcommittee updates.
Fall into haiku subcommittee. Do you guys have any updates?
Yeah, so the program is complete. I want to say about a month ago, I reached out to all the poets and let them know that they have about a week to go and pick up their haiku if they want to keep it. And I gave them, I think, a little bit more than a week. And I went around and just picked up the rest that were still up and dropped them off at City Hall to be disposed of. Jeremy offered to do that, which is very helpful. So thank you. Yeah, so that's it. And in terms of like passing on the like steps, instructions outline for the program, me and Jeremy still have Peter's from a couple years ago. I'm hoping at some point to kind of update that, modernize it, put things that I noticed, and pass that along to Jeremy for future reference. Yeah, I think that's all I have.
Great, thank you. Congratulations again on a great program.
Yeah, it got a lot of compliments. You know,
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
you know,
People were
I got
happy.
one just today. I was coming to the art committee meeting and they mentioned the haikus.
you know, the one thing that I will add in, can't get into a discussion on it now, but at some point I'd like to think about other alternative. I didn't like the idea of having to throw those away, and so I tried to get those recycled in a few different places. And I think that we should try and come up with somebody who wants to receive that type of foam core, because it could be useful for something, and it would be nice to have that set up in advance, some sort of way of having a destination for all of that. I was surprised at how few came back. Out of the 60 or so that were printed, I think there was only about 10 that you.
Yeah, I was like,
I was expecting a truckload that I was going to have to do something with, but I took them to like 3 different places and people didn't want them, and I don't like the idea of creating some artwork that needs to be thrown away. And I think we might want to think about some sustainability options for, you know, who could use that much foam core in a different way, and you know where that might be useful.
And I assume that the metal stands are reused.
Those they just got recycled, you know. So they just went into like metal recycling. I went over to El Cerrito and left those
Yeah.
there in the middle.
and yeah, they were. I will say some of them were pretty like beat up, mostly just like dirty, but from being in the mud. But yeah, I mean, I think recycling.
But all in all, a great program, and thank you for all the work bringing it back.
Okay, Sculpture Subcommittee has nothing to report.
All good in the gallery. We're booked through 2026.
Great. Murals has nothing to report.
Yeah, we did have a meeting with AUSD. Yeah, so mural subcommittee did meet with AUSD and shared some ideas, and they're kind of sharing it amongst the administration staff and coming up with some ideas for themes and location specifics. There may be, I think what was detailed from the last email is there may be some construction on
Yeah.
the location that is being considered, that there may need to be temporary mural, or we might have to kind of rethink that a little bit
Yeah.
depending on the schedule.
Okay, and then on to announcements. Jeremy, do you have any announcements?
The only announcement that I really wanted to share was because I think that since the last time we met, we had the opening for Journeys to Albany. So I don't think I was able to kind of give a report back of how good the event was and how well attended it was. I mean, the entire community center and the foyer was packed. Great attendance. Had a lot of city officials come through, and it was just a really engaging program. Probably one of the best arts exhibits that the city has kind of collaborated on, and it was, it took a long time to get it together, but 5 years was worth it. I think it's a really beautiful tribute to the different people that make up a small town, and I think it's just a really thoughtful piece of work. that is doing a lot for Albany. So, one of the things that I believe that some of that artwork will come back to the city as a permanent. I'm not exactly sure where those vinyl prints will go once they're done, but there is some potential for displaying them in other city buildings. You know, it could be these walls,
Yeah.
right? It could be at the senior center, it could be at Friendship Club. You know, the Arts Committee may want to weigh in on that at some point for how to archive some of the work that is collected that is somewhat temporary, and what to do with it. So
Does Susan own that artwork?
I believe the idea was that it was going to come back to the city, but I'm not certain. I'll have to go back and look at the contract, but I think that was what the idea was.
It'd be great to display that stuff. It's really nice.
Yeah.
I have to give kudos to the panel that Susan ran after as the second part of the show.
Yeah,
That was really well done.
yeah, it was a good event.
Great job. Do the committee members have any announcements?
No.
Just wanted to say, good job on the foyer gallery stuff. It looks great.
Yeah, it's kind of a starting point. We'll kind of standardize it, kind of clean up. And thanks for the feedback, and then as we move forward with the other calls, I'll do the same thing, that we can look at it all together first before it goes out.
Okay, and I guess the meeting is adjourned.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.